We're on. Angela's not here yet, but we can. We're gonna. She's acknowledged receipt of the link for StreamYard. So.
And I just ordered DoorDash because I can.
Oh yeah, we're ordering DoorDash. Here, you can come on in so you can get your beautiful face in the screen.
Any ghostly, alienish things happening with anybody?
And everything's up and running. All 8 channels are flaming.
Oh my God.
Oh my. I hope it all works out and she manages to make it. There she is.
Yay. Okay.
I was having trouble with my computer. I was having trouble with my sound. So I was just having problems.
Well, you don't look like you're having problems now.
I feel like I'm having problems.
Hey, you made it. We just got on here and just let's see. We've got a few viewers. There's Hollywood and Woo Riders and Denise Kinder. Kat, hey Kat, how you doing? And Angie.
I gotta put the link. I forgot. I'm sorry.
That's all right. So here, let me introduce Angela. So Angela Ford was she's born and raised in Western Pennsylvania, and she has a degree in political science from Indiana University of Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
And for 32 years, she worked for the intelligence community. I guess she's best known, not the only thing, but best known for her Defense Intelligence Agency work with the Stargate program, psychic program, which she joined in 1986. And she was a remote viewer for 9 years for them until Stargate ended or thereabouts. Angela's background, groundbreaking work in remote viewing and identifying spies using psi phenomena has helped advance our understanding of human perception and has been recognized as a valuable intelligence collection tool in national security. Angela was inducted into the NSA
Spy Museum.
That word.
Yeah. I also was in that because I worked for them for 20 years.
You work for NSA?
Yeah, for 20 years, and other members of the intelligence community, but NSA was 20 years. She's been featured on June 1999 on the Discovery Channel on a case that Angela solved for the U.S. Customs in 1989. Where she was able to locate Charles Jordan, a special agent for the U.S. Customs Service in Lovell, Wyoming. She outed him she identified him as a person taking lots of bribes and lots of drug smuggling and all sorts of other things. When Jordan learned he was a suspect, he fled and he was apprehended in Yellowstone. She now works. Let me cut this short. She works with Dr. Ed May, who's also quite famous at the Laboratories of Fundamental Research in Mountain View, California. Of course, now look, she's worked at Monroe Institute, where I'm sure she's interacted with Joe McMoneagle. But the most important and most famous thing Angela's ever done was put up with Lala and I when we were on a show, which we won't name, but we were looking for clues through psi phenomenon, remote viewing, etc., into missing and murdered people and other crimes.
Oh,
Angela,
wow.
it's very good to have you on.
Well, it's nice to be here. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, it's terrific. How's everything going?
Fine. Thank
Oh,
you.
good. Okay, so why don't you tell us, in addition to what I said, anything else you want about that I might have left out that you might think would be interesting to point out? But of course, I want to remind everyone that Angela was on one of the extremely long shows that Sean Ryan does. You must have spent a day with Sean at his place. Yeah, that was good. That was an awesome interview, and I encourage everyone to go see it. Lala and I are podcasters for fun. Sean is a serious podcaster, and he did a great interview with Angela. So what do you got going on now?
Me, well, I teach remote viewing classes. I teach remote viewing classes. I do readings. And then I do some creative stuff on the side. I wrote a children's book that I'm trying to get into. Well, I'm trying to get into animation. So we submitted it somewhere, hoping to get full funding and distribution. I'm working with Dr. May on a documentary called ESP Wars, because when the former Soviet Union fell in 1991 and there was no more Cold War, Ed May was working as a contractor, as a psi researcher for Stargate. Wow. And he wanted to go to Russia to meet their parapsychology researchers, because that's why we had our program, because we knew through intelligence reports that the Soviets were doing serious psi investigations and using psychics. They did not call their psychics remote viewers. That's what we use, because of the scientists at Stanford Research Institute called us. So he wanted money to go over to Russia to find out what all went on. So he started to make some trips over there, and I think he had the help with one. We knew through intelligence sources who was doing what, but he met these people because he was also a renowned scientist in psi investigation. And a lot of times Ed would travel the world and go to, the conferences, psi conferences, and they wouldn't even know that he was working for the government. He just went as a psi researcher. So he was pretty well known on the outside world. Well, he ended up making several trips over there, and then they became a lot of trips over there. And then I think they must have finally trusted him, because they said, "Do you want to meet the former Soviet Union psychics?" And he said yes. So he was able to meet, and he took Joe McMoneagle with him, and they were able to meet a man by the name of General Yuri Savin, who was the head of the psychics, and they met. Prior to the fall of the Soviet Union, before 1991, when Gorbachev came in and he was president, the Eastern European countries needed help. They were going through bankruptcy. So many people think Gorbachev came through, he just wanted peace, and he wanted to make peace with the Western world, but he needed those countries to be economically sound. That's why he opened the doors to the West. Well, because the Soviet Union had starving people, it was a very poor country. And I talked to people who visited there during that time, and they said, people were starving. So what Gorbachev allowed, he allowed there were Jewish people that lived in the Soviet Union, and Gorbachev allowed them, if they wanted to go back to their homeland in Israel, he let them. So, being in the intelligence community, we were watching. We were watching who was he letting go. So we identified a man that I worked with. Identified a woman named Larissa, who came out of the Soviet Union. She went to Israel, and apparently she worked with the Soviet parapsychologists. So she knew the organization. She knew people. So we vetted her. We put her on a plane and brought her from Israel to the United States. And of course, we debriefed her and received information from her. And what she ended up is she ended up staying, and she ended up working for Ed May out in California. Now, she brought a man out of the Ukraine. She was able to bring a young man, Victor Rubel, out of Ukraine. So he came after the fall of in 1991. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Victor came from the Ukraine because they worked together. Mm-hmm. And then it was through Victor and it was through Larissa that Ed was able to go to Russia and meet these people. It was through these people. So eventually Ed did meet the scientists who were like him that studied psychic research. But eventually he did meet the general who was in charge of the Soviet psychics. And so then this came, where everybody started talking and saying, well, we did this. And we were telling them, well, we did this. So that we were able to collaborate. Well, we looked at this. And there was a book that came out of it. It was called ESP Wars, East versus West. And then there was a Soviet version of the book that came out called ESP Wars, West versus East. And in 2015, in November, we were invited to go to the Soviet Union because the two books were published, and that we were invited. So I went over in November 2015, and there was a reception held by a formal government newspaper that gave the remote viewers and psychics a reception. So we did get to meet the former Soviet Union psychics.
Oh, that's curious. So I have one anecdote that I'll add, which you will be able to identify with. I'm not going to say exactly when or exactly the circumstances for probably obvious reasons, but I was in the Soviet Union before the fall, and I had the occasion to travel from the embassy by train to St. Petersburg. And it was, as you're correct, it was in really bad shape. Right. So we got maybe 100 kilometers from St. Petersburg, and the train stopped in the middle of nowhere. And so we were told that there was going to be a problem. It was going to be a couple hours to fix it. And if we wanted to walk around, we could. We were in this small town. So I went touristy. I had my camera, and I started walking around, and I noticed this long line of people. And I started walking around the long line of people, and I walked around the corner, and I could see, like a block ahead, they were going to a 55-gallon drum, and they were each getting a container of milk from this 55-gallon drum. It was the starkest view of the poverty at the end of the Soviet Union you could imagine. And they were mad. They thought I was going to take pictures with my camera, and I went, no. I'm not taking any pictures of this, because they did not want me showing this in the West. Mm-hmm. So I didn't take the pictures. But anyway, it was rough at the end of the Soviet Union.
And I don't even think Gorbachev was supposed to be president. When they went to vote, there was another man that was supposed to be the president, and somehow it fell to Gorbachev. But he needed to do. That's why I think the West opened up.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. So I went back later to do a job at the embassy in the late 1990s. But anyway, that was my last time there. And of course, none of us could easily go now, given the situation.
No, we went in 2015. It was
Yeah.
it was right at the end. And they, we talked to the people. I met the man. I met the man who was second in charge of the KGB during the 1980s, and he was into like psychic weaponry. What? And then we met another general who trained the PK, like the movement of objects.
Right.
He taught at the University of Moscow, and he invited us to his classroom. He was a psychiatrist. And then he brought us back to the labs where they taught people. And then we met a man, he was a healer, but he was assigned to travel with Gorbachev and Yeltsin, like as a bodyguard, and to mentally, if there was I guess he was supposed to mentally make sure that they were safe or there was no threat. But they used the Soviets used their psychics totally different than the way we were used.
Oh, how did they use them?
Hold on.
Go ahead.
This is blowing my mind. I didn't know that there was psychic weaponry and that they had healers come with them. Can you talk about that?
Well, the man was a healer. Now, when I met him in 2015, he was a healer. A psychic energy healer. Have you heard of Reiki?
Yeah. My dad did it, yeah.
But at the time, he was in the military in the 1980s when Gorbachev got in. Mm-hmm. He was in the military, and he was psychic, so they used him as a bodyguard to yell to the presidents. In other words, he more or less had to be a psychic to find out, is anybody trying to kill them? We're going to go here. Do I perceive a threat? Am I picking up a threat? Well, in the United States, they didn't put psychics with the president. They had Secret Service. They had the Secret Service. So they
for all we know, the Secret Service hired Cy. You might know or not know. But anyway.
But it wasn't known. This was a known fact.
Yeah.
That this is what they use, they talked about it. But if the Secret Service used psychics, the Secret Service isn't talking about it.
Right. They never tell any details of any operation. Look, they have that recent embarrassment of the assassination attempt in Pennsylvania that, as far as I'm concerned, they're still recovering from. So my understanding, I had a short, brief interaction with Ed. And I believe at that time we were talking about work he was doing, I think with the Soviet general you mentioned, but it may not have been him, but I know it was a former Soviet Psi person
that would have been
on an electronic machine to do remote viewing, or do I have that wrong?
Yeah, I think it was probably General Savin, because Savin ran the remote viewers.
Yeah, it was really interesting. But Ed and I had a conversation. I don't think he liked my technical opinion, and maybe you could tell me I was wrong because things work. Because I said, Ed, look, my opinion based on, and I told him what my opinions were based on, work by Sir Roger Penrose and others, that machines cannot be conscious and they can't do consciousness level work like a human being or a living being can do. And I told him it was based on things like Gödel's incompleteness theorem and lack of a halting problem in computational complexity and other things. I says, I just don't think any machine will ever be fully conscious. And he pretty much went quiet because I think he didn't agree with what I was saying, and I didn't agree with what I thought he was doing. So did it ever work?
No, I don't. I think Ed would agree with you on that. I think what you just said, Ed would definitely. And what was Ed saying? Ed doesn't. What was
he was talking about doing the RV work aided by some machinery. Now, maybe what he was doing was enhancing whatever signal you might receive, but I was unaware of the details.
No, he may have had. There was a healing machine. He could have. I think it was a healing machine that him and General Savin had, and they were. That's what I think you're talking. It had nothing to do with remote viewing. It was a healing machine.
It's my fault for misremembering.
What?
I misremembered.
Yeah,
I thought I might have had, because it was a while ago. It was a while ago.
I mean, Ed would agree that a machine is not going to remote. It's not, no, I think he would agree with what you said. But I think you may have been talking about the healing machine that he received from the Soviets and how you put it on different frequencies to heal different things in the body, which we now have the music, the binaural
beats. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's what.
Got it.
Because Ed isn't. He's a strict scientist. He's not into New Age or, he's very strict scientist. You have to prove it to him.
Yep, I'm kind of the same way. Even though I've had so many different experiences now, especially since Lala and I got together, I know that I don't have a scientific explanation, but I continue to seek it.
Somebody has a question in the chat room, and they said, "Do they teach psi or just find the naturals and then utilize them? And if they do find them, how do they find them? Is it a type of person they're looking for, or bloodline, or what?"
I don't know how the Soviets did it.
I mean, our side too.
Oh, our side.
Yeah.
Well, our side, I think, kind of did it really. Well, what happened was Stanford Research Institute, back in the early 1970s, 1973, they had two scientists, Russell Targ and Hal Puthoff, and they were studying remote viewing. And what they were studying Chinese children who had precognition. And whenever the children would speak, when they would translate it from Chinese to English, the children were saying, I remotely view, or I view remote. So that's how it got the name. Okay. Now, they were probably studying how ESP, remote viewing is nothing more than ESP.
Right.
So they did this study on, well, what is this? How does it make it work? How does it work? Mm-hmm. Who are the people? Where do we find these people that have this ability? So I don't know but anyway, I think what they did was they went out and they were just looking for psychics. There was Hella Hammond from Germany, well-known, well-known psychic. There was Ingo Swann, the artist from New York City. He was psychic. They had Pat Price, who was, what was he? He was a
former police officer, and so I also know he was a prominent Scientologist. Hal had been into Scientology for a while.
They all were. Everybody at SRI was into Scientology at one point or the other. So
but that was before Peter Miscavige took over and drove Scientology over the edge.
It was a difference. I used to live in Washington, D.C., right next to the Scientology building. So it wasn't like it is now. But so I think that more or less they were going out and they had the psychics. And then I think they needed to get more psychics. So they went up to San Francisco and started interviewing all the leftover hippies from the 1960s.
Cool.
Now, the military had a different viewpoint. So now you had a military remote viewing group, and that fell under the Department of Army. So you had Dr. Verona at the Defense Intelligence Agency. You had Dale Graff. They were scientists. They were the ones funding these universities that studied ESP. The Duke University in North Carolina, Princeton University, Stanford Research in California. Now, so then I think they decided to have they were bringing in people, the Army were bringing in people on a part-time basis to see if they could remote view. And they were giving training targets that were set up by SRI. This was not military. This was all non-military.
Right.
And I think that Joe got involved because when Joe was in Vietnam, he was the leader. When you would go out to fight, or to go into battle, Joe was the leader and everybody followed him. Well, they said that usually the leader gets shot first, or they get killed because they're the first one out there. But sometimes you have these leaders that keep coming back. They keep coming back. So Joe kind of came back, and so all of a sudden, the military soldiers wanted to follow Joe into battle because intuitively he knew he was using his intuition.
Right.
Or not to, and I think they noticed that in Joe. Like, so I think he may have been nabbed to be tested or something. And then I think now this remote viewing, it fell under human resources. It didn't fall under the technical. So you had a lot of people in a lot of military. This was Army intelligence. You had a lot of people in Army intelligence that that's where they were taking it from the Army, because there was a man by the name of Skip Atwater, and he was working at the Pentagon, and he was working for a member of the Joint Chief of Staff.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He was an Army guy, and he was an intelligence guy. And Skip Atwater was involved in this psychic stuff, and he told this general, he said, "Why don't you start a remote viewing? Why don't you start a remote viewing group?" So I guess the general said, "Well, let's just try it part-time. Let's just see what happens." So I guess I'm not sure how they did it, but I guess if they said, if you have an interest, I mean, this was all classified. If you have an interest, if you think you can do it, come on in and try it. Well, they were bringing people in on a part-time basis. Well, then in 1976, and most of them were Army officers or enlisted people, because this was being run by the Army, because Skip Atwater was in the Army, and he happened to nab a Joint Chief of Staff man that was at the Army. So they put the remote viewers under Army intelligence. So I guess they had these part-time remote viewers. But then in 1976, there was a downed aircraft that I guess they were trying to find this downed aircraft. I don't know. I think it was was it in
Africa? Yes, in Africa, when Carter was president.
Okay. Well, they found it. And then at that point they said, okay, we're going to put you remote viewers full time. So they brought in people full time as remote viewers. Wow. Now, because it was a special access program, and because it was classified and you couldn't go out and just hire people, the people in the group, they would feel, if they felt like somebody could become a good remote viewer, then they'd bring them into the project. Well, what happened? Excuse me, I gotta take this.
No, you're cool.
You're cool. I drink water all the time.
Well, one man thought that his neighbor would make a good remote viewer, so they brought him in. And what happened was, you were bringing people into remote view that were friends of friends, but nobody really had this nobody was really into the background. I mean, if you become psychic, or if you become if you're a natural psychic, if you have the abilities, you have more of a spiritual background, or you start having an understanding of how things work. Mm-hmm. But this was the military, and the military is big on training. So they took Ingo Swan's little handbook of coordinate remote viewing. Now they're calling it controlled remote viewing. And they said, okay, this is how you're going to remote view. And the Army loved it, because you could come in, you had a manual, you could follow the manual, you could remote view, and then you could go home, and none of the spiritual stuff or starting to believe in another way, it didn't affect them.
Yeah. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
So I really think Stanford had the right idea. They were getting better results with the leftover hippies from San Francisco than what we were getting.
Okay, so you mostly remote view in all of your formal sessions, blind to the target. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Angela asked, do you receive information ahead of time? And the answer is, since the earliest days, remote viewers always work blind to the target. So you're actually trained. Your neuroplasticity is trained by getting feedback after you do the reading.
Well, you get feedback.
Okay, so did you know General Stubblebine or work with him?
Yeah, that's how I got into the program, because
Okay, good.
I was working with Army intelligence. I was a Central American analyst. I had a political science degree. I came over from the FBI.
Wow.
And I was working for the FBI, and I didn't have the eyesight to be an agent. And the FBI paid lousy wages. And I was working with a woman who left, and she went to Army intelligence to work with her husband. And she called me up and she said, Army intelligence is they have openings for young people. They want to put on intern programs. I was an intern for a Department of Army Intelligence, I think for 2 or 3 years. And then they gave you a job. So I was at Army Intelligence working, and whoever was the head of whoever general was the head of Army Intelligence inherited the program. And then General Stubblebine came in, because he was with TRADOC, the Army training school out in Arizona. Well, when General Stubblebine came in, he had more of an interest than just remote viewing. He was into spoon bending. He had Colonel Alexander with him, who was walking on fire, and they were into this whole other. That was more than just remote viewing. They were bringing people down to Monroe Institute on the weekends. And General Stubblebine was looking for people. And at that time, I was very psychic, and I started to give readings. And I was also in training at the Fred Mansbridge Institute in Alexandria, Virginia. So I felt like, well, I'd like to try this.
Did you sit at Fort Meade?
Yeah, I was transferred I worked in Arlington, and then when I became a remote viewer, I went to Fort Meade.
Great, that's terrific. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that Fort Meade is the home of the Army.
It is the home of the Army. In World War II, it was, NSA rents from Fort Meade. Right. NSA pays rent to Fort Meade, but Fort Meade is an Army base, and it's known to it houses a lot of human intelligence programs.
I used to go down accidentally on purpose to the catacombs down there when I was younger. And I'm telling you, there was something in there that was not human. I swear it was something in there. I saw with my own eyes. It was amazing, but it scared the crap out of me. So I didn't go back. But anyway, it was amazing. The energy there is really interesting. Have you experienced, wherever you were working with other psychics, that there were other beings maybe somewhere on?
Yeah, I channeled to other beings. They were my beings. I channeled to other beings. Okay. Oh, sure. Yeah. But it was military. It was very closed off to anything esoteric. I mean, they didn't like it. They didn't like me, and they didn't like what I was doing. But then I wasn't allowed to do it at first. And then we had a change in management, and then I was allowed to do it, to do what I do, I guess. But even whenever we would go to we went to Congress, and the question was people felt you need to get the natural psychics in there, and the military was like, oh no, we can train them, and you can train someone up to a certain point, but to go to get further, I think it's genetic. I don't know, but it was a bone of contention, and I think that it was just something that probably one of the reasons that led to the demise of the program.
But Lala and I both had odd experiences when we were young. She remembers UFOs in the sky in her backyard when she was a tiny child, 3 or 4 years old. Did you have childhood experiences?
I had a childhood experience. I think I must have been 13. I had a UFO experience. Wow. I had out-of-body experiences when I was young. Yes.
Interesting. And you're interested in NDEs, near-death experiences as well?
And I never had an NDE, but I figured it's the same thing as going out of body,
Yeah.
except you're going high, except you're crossing the line, I guess, over to the other side.
Right.
Yeah, you still must maintain some connection if you're able to come back to your body. It's not completely the cord between you and your body hasn't been fully separated. If you only had a near-death experience, it's always interested me. So and the reason is, I had 3 cardiac arrests, which lasted for several minutes when I was 1 year old.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I had cerebral meningitis and very high fever. My parents were told that I wouldn't make it, and if I did make it, I would be a vegetable. And they tried something kooky, was putting ice water in my stomach to try to bring my fever down. And suddenly, I just woke up, and it was interesting. So all through my childhood, I would have download experiences, a little bit of missing time, etc.
Do you remember being that young and having NDEs?
I don't remember the NDEs, but shortly after that, we moved to Alabama, which is where I grew up, from Tennessee, and I have the most clear, vivid memory, like I was watching it in a movie on the screen, of us driving around the corner and going to our new home in Alabama when I was just over 1 year old. And then when I was 3 years old, I woke up one day, walked in where my mother was entertaining her friend, grabbed books off the shelf and started reading them to them. And I had never had a reading class ever.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I had these kind of download trainings.
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
And so I claimed that, I'm probably a bit on the spectrum, and I claimed that I was going to the hill and getting taught, like in the telepathy tapes.
That's a good question.
Okay. Is there a spirit world, or are all messages all part of a collective memory that is already there from the past and the future?
Oh, that was a question for you from Sadie.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's a collective memory, but I think there's many different spirits too.
Yep.
Yeah, so do I. And I'm given my other experiences, I'm clear that we maintain some connection to our personality, even when we're out of body or passed on. I mean, look, the way she and I got together is my mother was passing, and afterwards she gave me a reading, and my mother absolutely came through and made clear that she was there talking through Lala.
Well, that's when I kind of figured, I didn't know that I could read. I thought she had passed, but she was in a coma.
Yeah.
And then I started to realize people that are in a coma feel like, so do you think that they have crossed over, but their body's still alive?
I don't know. I mean, she could have been halfway between two worlds or whatever. Sometimes, people see the loved ones.
She did. So during the last 2 weeks, when she would go into a coma and out of a coma and in a coma and out of a coma, when she would come out of the coma, she would interact with us. But she would also be interacting with all of our dead relatives that were in the room.
She was in between worlds. But when you were accessing, and when you were getting information on her, you were telling him. So you were probably accessing her mind. And it didn't matter if her mind was here or on the other side. It didn't matter.
Right.
Where were you getting the information from? Her mind?
I don't know. What I do is I look at people's eyes and I just get information. I get pictures or words and things like that.
So she takes a picture, and the eyes on the picture are like the coordinate on your remote viewing target. That's her coordinate, and she makes the connection.
Yeah, it's the focus. I use the connection. Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if she was like over there or here. You were getting the information. It's when I receive information, when I give readings, it doesn't matter if the person is here or on the other side. It just doesn't matter. Information is information. It doesn't matter.
Did you ever hear anyone speculate, any of the scientists you interact with speculate on the mechanism for thought transference, the physical mechanism. Were you ever aware of any of their opinions?
No, I was not.
I wondered if Hal Puthoff might have said something. And did you ever meet him?
I didn't know Hal Puthoff, and I did not know Russell Targ. I only knew Ed May.
Yeah.
And in remote viewing, we go to the target. We don't use telepathy.
Right.
It wasn't telepathy. It was the target. You go to the target.
Right. Yeah, a lot of people think remote viewing is like mind-to-mind telepathy, and it's not.
It's not.
It's not at all. It's like all these different senses, all these different perceptions coming in from everywhere. Okay. Can you talk about the aliens you've been in contact with?
I think I had one. Well, I had one alien experience, and I was very comfortable with it. I just saw, I felt like I've been through it before. It did not bother me.
Mm-hmm.
It felt normal, or it felt. Did you have any alien experience, Lila?
Tell her how you feel when you have one.
I mean, I am super shy and anxious in general, but whenever I've had experience with them, I'm very calm. I'm not terrified. Yeah.
She says they use alien Xanax on her.
I was very calm, and it was like I saw, and I'm like, hey. I was like, hey, I remember you. How you doing? Or long time no see.
Yeah.
And I was just very relaxed. And I don't know, he may have had an instrument and I don't know what he did. They call it probing. And then after he was done, I took the instrument and then I did the same thing to him.
Oh, wow.
That's terrific. Now, I think I recall that you have relatives, your siblings. And did any of your siblings have abilities?
Oh, yeah. I had a sister and 2 cousins, my mother and my aunt. Yeah, it's genetic.
Right.
I agree.
Right, yeah. Yeah, we agree.
I have a conspiracy where I think a lot of Rh negative or O negative bloodlines are abducted a lot, or psychic, things like that.
I'm O. What are you?
I'm O negative. Thank you. See?
But yeah, we were the first ones here. We were the primitives. We were the first ones here. The A and the A, the B and the AB all came later because they became farmers and then cities. But we were here first. We were the primitive. Oh. So what is RH? What is RH?
It's called rhesus factor because it's something passed down through primates. But if you don't have these rhesus factors, you are RH negative. Because you don't have the rhesus factors. If you do have the rhesus factors, you're RH positive. Now, what a rhesus factor is, don't ask me because I don't remember the details.
I have no idea.
So, was your childhood normal?
Yeah, but I remembered the experiences that I had.
Yeah, the reason I ask is a lot of people don't have a normal childhood. And so, for example, I'm not telling something that is not known since Joe wrote about it in his biography. He had a very traumatic childhood, and he claims that it was a major factor in his opinion, in his developing intuition.
Well, I was born and raised in a coal mining town in Western Pennsylvania. Now, we did not have Catholic school, but I'm Italian, and so I was born a Catholic. But as a young child, we would go to catechism, or we would have summer school with the nuns. And I mean, I can remember just being terrified of the nuns and the priests, and the nuns would just beat us when I was a little girl. So I really grew up. I mean, I was 16 years old, and there was no way. I just needed to get away from the church. So I think maybe that was trauma, trauma. But I won't. I mean, I will. The only reason I go to church is because if someone died or got married in the family, but I don't seek it. And even now, I don't. So I would say my trauma probably was with the Catholic Church.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That sounds right. So my father was a Methodist minister, and he was a kind and gentle soul, as was my mother. So I can't find another minister. Yeah, that's fine. I can't find another minister like him. So while I am a faithful person and believe, I just don't go to church anymore because I prefer reading about the scripture and studying it and so forth. I'm a studier reader rather than go where a lot of those people are. Even though he said constantly that church was a hospital for sinners and that we needed to go and congregate to help them, but because that's very, very different than being raised in a military-like fashion by nuns that would wrap you across the knuckles.
Well, they would just pull our arms. I mean, I thought my arms would come out of my. So they were just, I just did not like it. I just didn't like it.
Right.
And of course, you would go home and you tell my mother. My mother would just, well, maybe you were bad at the time. They're not. This was back in the early 1960s. It was a different time. Now they wouldn't get away with it. Okay,
so tell me about your course, your RV course. How do people find it, and describe it if you would?
Well, we advertise it on Twitter, X. It's what I do is I teach people basic remote viewing, and I try to use targets that were used by Stanford Research Institute in training people. So we go through a lot of weeks where I work with a girl named Amaris, and she has the target pool, and everybody works in the blind. I don't know what the target is. She doesn't know what the target is. The viewers don't know what the target is. So we do a standard remote viewing target, and that's mostly the picture being outside. So we do 2 or 3 weeks of that, and then we give homework. We make people remote view and then give us the feedback, and we discuss it. So they're getting more remote viewing time if I give them homework. Right. Then I move to accessing and describe famous people. I give them personalities, because when you access and describe personalities, it's a whole different feeling than it is from remote viewing. Standard targets. And a lot of my success that I had in the unit was I could access and describe people. I knew intentions. I could read people. So I feel that's very important. Now, I don't care how people access famous people. I don't care about the methodology. As long as the protocols are clean. Now, and then we work with some famous people, and then what I have them remote view is after they get their feel for people, then I have them remote view an event associated with the famous personality. So then that's kind of a little bit more complex, because you're not doing the target, you're not doing the picture, you're not doing the personality, you're doing the personality and an event. Now that'll go on for maybe 2 weeks, and then after that I may do a military target, and then I try to close up teaching people how to do search or how to find something. But finding something is totally different than remote viewing, because when you access and describe a person, an event, or a picture, you have to open up your mind to see it. But when you're looking for something, your mind doesn't need all of that. It has to close up to get right to the point. So I usually save the locational work to last, because somehow the mind is going to do something different than it has the first 5 weeks. My classes usually last about 6 weeks.
Okay, so and how long do you find it typically takes to take a novice to begin to have success in finding a target?
When people start remote viewing, they have a lot of success. They have tremendous success. Mm-hmm. And they think, hey, wow, this is fun. This is easy. Well, after they have some success, the subconscious kicks in and says, hey, what are you doing to me? What do this is new to me, and I don't like this. Mm-hmm. So the subconscious will kick in, and then the subconscious doesn't want to work for them. So all of a sudden they have a dip. So they do really good, and then they have a dip, and people have a tendency to maybe not do so well. They have to get over that. And once they come up, and then once they start working with themselves, you'll see that they'll be good remote viewers.
Kiki wants to know, will you expand on what you mean by protocols being clean?
That I don't know that there's a picture in an envelope. Either it's a personality, an event, a personality and an event, a picture. I don't want to know what that is. I don't know what it is. The woman I'm working with, Amaris, who she has the target pool, she doesn't know what the picture is. Now, and the remote viewers don't know what the picture is. So they have to access. And so what this is really precognition, because nobody knows what the picture is. So then the viewers will access and they'll describe a picture, and then what Amaris will do is she'll pick a picture before we start.
Okay, so
nobody knows what the target is except Amaris picks it and puts it somewhere. It's quiet.
So do you really dislike working on targets for which you are not likely to get feedback?
Oh, we give them feedback after they work it.
No, but see, you've looked at targets where you could not possibly get feedback. Like look at a planet, or look at a historical event or historical thing.
Well,
do you like that or dislike it?
Well, not for training purposes. For training purposes, the purpose is to give the feedback, right. So the people know. If you're training somebody, you need to give them the feedback, because they need to see, did I fail? Did I do okay? If you're training somebody and you're giving them a target that nobody knows anything about, which isn't the case nowadays as it was back then. We had people we had one guy who had an interest in Mars, and he always wanted people to remote view Mars, but we didn't have information on Mars. So that didn't make sense. I'm in training, I'm expecting feedback. Why would you give me Mars when you don't know the answer and I don't know the answer? Where are we going to get it? It's a waste of time. It's a waste of time.
Right. It's not an economical way to train anyone, because you don't get feedback. You need a grade.
Yeah. Now, if you work an operation, if you're in an operational mode and you're doing predictive work, well, you got to wait. You're not going to get feedback right away, because you have to wait for the prediction. You have to wait for the future for the prediction to happen. Right. Also, it takes a while. If you're given information and you have to give it to the analyst, and then they have to check it out through sources, right. And maybe sources that are overseas, or how are you going to get immediate feedback? But that's a whole different picture. That's totally different. And I worked in the intelligence community. I worked as an analyst. As an analyst, you take all of the collected information, and there's many different collection methods, and remote viewing would have been one method of collecting. Well, as an analyst, I have to take all of that and make sense out of it and write policy papers. Well, that's when I was remote viewing and collecting information, and my information was going places. That's what those analysts have to. They have to analyze, what was I saying? Does it fit in? And even does it fit in? And even if it didn't, are they going to take the chance to go out and look? And a lot of times they did. And even if they say that you should not use. You should not conduct an operation based on one source, but right. There were some instances on my information they did. But it worked out. It was a lot of pressure, but they did it. Because
when you found the intelligence officer who was not acting well. I mean, that was you didn't get a lot of feedback, or even know that you were going to be able to succeed, until you found this person who was violating their security oath. That was interesting.
When was that? Well, I don't.
Yeah,
remember.
when you found the guy out in, where was he, in Colorado or Wyoming? I can't remember the details.
Wyoming.
Yeah, Wyoming. Yeah. I mean, this all. I mean, it took courage to do that and put your views forward because you knew you were going to get negative feedback if it was wrong. So I mean, it takes a little moral fortitude to do that.
Yeah, but I didn't know what he was wanted for, and I didn't know anything about it. So I mean, there was like, where was he? I did not know he was on the 10 most wanted. I didn't know anything.
Okay, so completely blind.
So I was completely blind. So they said, "Where is he?" I said, "He's there." I didn't. That's all I knew. I mean, I didn't know he was on the 10 most wanted. I didn't know what he was wanted for until after he was, because I was in the blind. So that didn't affect me. But other things, I knew a little bit of what I was going for, like Gaddafi's chemicals, how he would hit the chemical plant. I knew, I had an idea of that when I didn't know what I was going for until they called up and said they were going to launch a submarine based on my information. Because I said it was, so that kind of made us a little bit nervous, because how would you like to be wrong after they launched a submarine based on I'm like, that was like, we're sweating bullets on that one. But
no kidding. Yeah, $1 billion submarine doing $100 million operation
out of Greece to go look around Turkey.
All right, but, so if you scratch your memory and you think of kind of all the cases you've done, one or two of them must have been exciting, funny, or something. Spooky, whatever. Why don't you give us one anecdote?
Oh, I think I worked the hostages in Lebanon, and I really I worked the hostages in Lebanon, and that I had a lot of I think that was my favorite. Well, they were human beings, and it was just rough. But I really liked working that because I really felt like I felt like I was contributing, because they were taking my info. I don't know how many hostages there were, but we did their health statuses. I said that one man, Poe Hill, would come out with a sore throat, and he came out with throat cancer. But we were looking for the locations. Hezbollah we were looking for locations.
Right.
And so I would do the locations, and we would run the information from Fort Meade up to headquarters in Washington, D.C. The analysts would take the information, give it to the Israeli embassy. The Israeli embassy would call it in, and then they would have their forces go out and look. And I remembered saying that Terry Anderson was in the Bekaa Valley, and one analyst said, "Oh, he would never be there. It's not the MO of the terrorist group that has him, that he would be in the Bekaa Valley," and he was.
Wow,
that's amazing. That really is amazing.
Do you have any public appearances coming up?
Not that I know of. This is it. Thank you.
No. You can come back.
Yeah, so, please come back.
Yeah. The reason and I'd like to find another place where we can help work together, because I'm much better at being the monitor, where I sit back and help with the interpretation, and she looks up and to the right, and I can tell she's connected. She has this kind of tick where she looks up and to the right and gets this blank look on her face, and she is fully engaged with the source of the information. So I noticed it from the first time. I'll never forget where my grandmother came through, and she did not know who she was. She couldn't understand her because my grandmother had an extremely thick Southern accent. And she couldn't understand her. She kept saying, but she keeps saying this word over and over. She's like feisty and jumping up and down and insisting, trying to get me to say this word, and I have no clue what it means. I said, well, what is it? And she says, I think she's saying Tweety. Well, my grandmother would call me Sweetie, and I couldn't say it, so I called her Tweety, and that became her other name. I mean, imagine that, Angela, just getting hard-nosed, hardcore, scientist getting slapped in the face with this psychic stuff is real.
Well, I always think I'm crazy until someone validates it. You know?
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. Because you don't know where you never know where the information's coming from. And I get real insecure. I mean, I just get, I had a call maybe a couple of months ago from a man from New York City, and he's a journalist, but he's a producer.
Right.
And they were looking into the case of the Lindbergh. Do you remember the Lindbergh baby?
Yeah,
Crime of the century.
Right.
And he called me up and he said, that we're going to do this program, and that now that they have DNA, there were 15 ransom notes that were sent. And they had a DNA expert or a forensic, somebody that understood DNA, and now they feel that they could be very close to solving who the kidnapper was, because I guess they arrested some man and then they killed him, and now they're not sure if they had the right man. Mm-hmm. So he said, is there anything that you could do to help us? So I'm thinking to myself, the case is well known. I know what the outcome is. It's what can I possibly say? So I let it fester for a couple of weeks. And then the man he was real nice. And I said, look, I can't promise you anything, but I will try to do something for you. So I sat down one night and I channeled the word willow. I channeled the word willow. It came through automatic writing. And then after I channeled that, I kind of stepped away, and then I started to get the feeling of horses. I saw horses, and I thought, well, those Lindberghs, they were rich and they owned many houses, and I'm sure they had horses in the stables. So I emailed the guy, the man back. It was late at night. It must have been around 10:30, 11. It was close to midnight. And I said, well, I got the word willow and I saw horses. Well, he emailed me back a minute later and he said, may I call you? And I said, yes, you can call me. So he said, it helped. The information helped him. Now, I'm thinking, what am I getting? It doesn't make any sense. I don't care. I mean, this is a known case, but he's taking his chance on me. Well, what he did is he called me up and he said there was a horse race track in upstate New York known as the Willows. And they feel that the person who kidnapped the baby would go to that racetrack and knew the owner of the racetrack. And there was some information there that could be a lead that whoever. So anyway, I was glad I was able to do that because I didn't think I was going to get anything. But I know you just don't know. You don't know what you're going to get, and then you don't know whether or not to trust it.
Right,
Angela. Look, I hate the hours come to an end, but we probably will like to have you back. We'll talk to you offline about doing another show where we do something a little different, a little more active. It is so good to see you again, and I'm really happy I was really happy to see that you were on X and were teaching remote viewing and that stuff, because I didn't know what you were doing. I was very happy to find that out. But
you're down in Virginia?
No, we're in Maryland.
Yeah.
Where in Maryland?
In Havre de Grace.
Oh, I'm down in Calvert. I'm about an hour. Where am I? I'm in Calvert County, Southern Maryland, near Annapolis. Yeah. You pass Annapolis and then
work in Annapolis and DC. I own a face painting business and I work there all the time and in Pennsylvania all the time. So maybe sometime we could hang out.
No, we'll work out getting together with you, because it's been a while since we have seen you, and the work was interesting. It was not as rewarding as I hoped it would be, because it was not my feeling about the work we were involved in before. It was not being done correctly, but we were not in charge, right? We were just doing whatever the person who was in charge was asking us to do. It just didn't feel right. Anyway, so
where was it? Where was this?
On the Grizzly show. You remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it was not done. It was not done right, given all that I've read. But anyway,
806 people are watching.
Yes, great. You're our largest audience ever.
I think you two are great.
Oh, well, we are just so delighted you came on and to see you again. So
Yeah,
listen, everyone.
Okay, thank
How
you.
can people get in touch with you on X, or how do they do it?
On X or email. Email.
Okay.
I have a hard time with the texting. The texting drives me crazy because it's too many people.
Yeah.
I can't keep track of the phone numbers.
Okay, so tell people your email address.
Ford, Ford, Angela, Angela, 04@gmail.com.
Okay, great. Everyone, thank you so much for coming and making Angela our largest attended live show ever. And so we'll bring her back and do stuff again. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. It was fun. And after we end this, we'll come back and talk to you.